53 of the programme for government makes reference to healthcare in our communities. It was recently highlighted that 44% of GP clinics are actually full, with rural areas being worst hit. And I know for a fact that in Laois, 100% of GPs have stated that they cannot take on any new patients, while in Offaly only a mere 20% of GPs can take on new patients. So it has reached crisis point in some regions, like Laois and Offaly, where I've been contacted by many concerned constituents. And I'm just wondering, Tánaiste, what actions will this government and indeed the Minister for Health collectively take to resolve this crisis, which is particularly pertinent and obvious in rural areas? And I'm just wondering also, will convening of a stakeholder forum take place in an attempt to resolve this ongoing crisis, which is getting worse by the day? Guramagat.
The recruitment of more GPs across the country, and and we're actively trying to do that.
Jack Chambers.
Tánaiste, my question relates to the attempt by the government to secure a seat on the UN Security Council. I understand that your department, via the Department of Defence, is organising a naval ship to be sent to New York and perhaps other cities to engage with UN officials. Can you tell me what the purpose of that trip is? Is it to wine and dine officials, or is there serious business going on there? It's at the backdrop of docked naval ships that you're aware of, where it's already difficult to meet our service level agreements, and already considerable costs being incurred by your department, which my colleague Deputy Collins has raised regarding the seat on the UN Security Council. So with the recruitment and retention crisis and the difficulties, can you just explain the purpose of the deployment of that ship?
Yeah. Well, there is a naval ship that will be crossing the Atlantic and will be in New York next week, but also will be visiting other US cities as well. I think it's important to say that the role of the naval service is not solely one of fisheries protection, or indeed intercepting drugs and so on, which is a really important part of what they do. But there's a broader remit too, as we've seen in the Mediterranean, and as we'll see next week, where they essentially will be playing an ambassadorial role in terms of not just the Security Council campaign. That's only one element of what they're doing. They're also reaching out to Irish diaspora in big Irish cities on the East Coast, and this is not new. Naval ships have been sent abroad on essentially with a diplomatic role many times in the past. So I would appeal to people not to try to make this into something that it's not. We are also trying to recruit people into the naval service, and people need to see the broad spectrum of roles and responsibilities that naval personnel actually play, and I think that will be very evident next week abroad.